Welcome to the We Founders podcast. We are women entrepreneurs, founders, and investors sharing our stories about how we raise funds, invest, and build our businesses from the Western Balkans. I'm your host, Gaia Montelatici, General Partner at Studio X Ventures. Hello, Bojana. It's a really big pleasure to host you today at our We Founders.
It's my pleasure to be with you guys.
You have a very actually unique story, right? You are from Belgrade, but you went to Germany, and you're here to tell us all about how you actually made your career from scratch through non-linear paths and a lot of passion and a lot of value-driven vision. So inspire us all with your journey.
Thank you for the nice introduction, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm hoping to give you some good ideas about all the different possibilities that are waiting for you in life, regardless of whether you're thinking about what to study or thinking about where to start your career or how to continue your career or to start your own venture. I think the most important thing to bear in mind is that, change is a perfectly normal part of our existence, and that we should be ready to follow our instincts that tell us in certain moment that something is right for us. And even though sometimes some decisions that we make don't necessarily make sense at that point, eventually there will come the time when you're going to be like, okay, now it seems like the pieces are coming together and everything that I did led me exactly to this point. So in my personal case, I did live in Belgrade for a big part of my life, but I was originally born in a little town in West Serbia called Šabac. So when I attended my elementary school and when I was finishing it, I was encountered for the first time in my life with a sort of a decision-making process where I needed to decide what is it that I want to do with my life. And in general, I think that it is a little bit incredible that at such young age we need to decide that we're going to go in this path or that path, because we have so little life experience. And yet there we are, we need to say, I'm going to go to this high school or that high school. And for me particularly, and I'm sure that many of the listeners or viewers are also similar to myself, I am by nature a very curious person. I have so many interests. I tend to get all over the place, and I'm very hardworking and ambitious and competitive. So everything that I did in my life, I always wanted to be one of the best ones. So in my elementary school, I excelled at all the subjects that we had. And that didn't make it easier for me to decide, shall I do this or that, particularly because the things that I liked the most just were not related to each other at all. I used to love mathematics. I used to spend my summers in the summer camp for mathematicians. And I thought it was so much fun, and I learned so much and got friends for life out of these experiences. But then on the other hand, I really love languages, and I love philosophy. I love meeting other cultures, talking to people, and I'm totally obsessed by media. And as if that wasn't enough, I had this third thing on top, which was my passion for music. And my music teacher from my elementary school for musical education was like, you have to study, high school for music. You're so talented. It would be such a shame. And me, a little bit lost in space, I thought, I'm just gonna do sort of low-key procrastinating. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go in grammar school and I'm gonna go to secondary school for music, and then I'll see on the way which thing I like more, and that's the school that I'm gonna focus on. And of course, that wasn't the case, because as I mentioned, this ambition and the wish to always excel at everything that I do brought me to finish both schools at the same time. And I think that was the best thing I could do to myself, because as many of you coming from former Yugoslavia, as you can imagine, the 90s, beginning of 2000s were not an easy time for a teenager to grow up. So by being immersed in studying, I felt like, I kind of had my little bubble that was outside of what was happening in the world. But the other thing that I felt only later in my life was a bit tricky with being so immersed in studying is that, in a lot of former communist countries, but also at the end of the day in most Western countries too, our education is a little bit like a company. So we have a CEO or our teachers or principals who decide what we're going to study, and we are all like pupils, like employees. So we have a task, we have a leader there, and that person tells us you should learn this or you should learn that. So the biggest decisions that we have to make is like, what kind of tasks, how I'm going to do this homework in order to get the best grade, or how do I fulfill my teacher's expectations? So when we finish school, we end up a little bit like lost in space, because we not only have any sort of decision-making experience, but we also don't even have an exact idea of what it is that we can do with our lives. So at the end of my high school, I thought to myself, I need to simplify this whole decision-making process. And I was hoping that it would become clear to me what it is that I want to do, but still with this spectrum of possibilities and getting a little bit lost in it, I just decided to sort of go for the safe path. So I thought to myself, let's study, because nowadays so many people study that in order to be competitive in the job market, you need to kind of have a university degree. At least that's what I thought at that point. So I studied English language and literature, and I thought, I can be like a teacher or a language professor, and that seemed like a valid career path to me at that time. And it is in general, but I realized with time that for some people it works well, but for me it doesn't, that I felt like I need something more. So when I finished my bachelor degree, I thought to myself, I had already started working as a foreign language teacher, and I had already a couple of years of working experience. And I think I was very good at that job, because I always like to be all in whatever I do. But then I realized somehow that this need in me was telling me, that there must be something else. And I feel like I should do more than this, but I didn't know at that point what it is that I should be doing, because I feel like universities and schools in Serbia or all around the Western world are preparing us really well for classical type of jobs like teacher or medical doctor, lawyer, something where sort of everybody knows what these people do roughly. And I think it's amazing for those who say, hey, I see myself in this role. But there are so many people like myself who just are not, don't recognize themselves in these roles. And I feel like after finishing universities, it tends to get a little bit overwhelming, because you realize, so little about anything. You don't even know like where to start researching, and it tends to get overwhelming. And I think that some people tend to get a little bit lost in the process, so they tend to like get the easiest sort of a thing, or the thing that kind of they have a certain idea of how that would work. And then all of a sudden that thing kind of becomes their job path, and then it becomes their life, and they're not even sure that they wanted it in the first place. So that's why I think whenever we have some doubts about, is this for me? Would I like to try something else? That we should listen to this instinct. The other thing that I learned is that in order to make some change in your life, it's very, very important to somehow get yourself out of the context where you're living at that moment. this is a thing that we realize maybe at a certain later time in life, but at that very moment, you're so used to people who surround you, you're so used to, you know, certain behavioral patterns that it is very, very difficult to make a change. But if you decide to change your surroundings, and by saying this, I don't mean necessarily that you have to move to another country. You can move to another town, you can change jobs, you can volunteer for projects. The most important thing is that you find yourself in a sort of unfamiliar situation, surrounded by people you don't know and who do not know you, because the fact that you have some sort of a new beginning in front of you kind of relaxes you psychologically, and it allows you to be what you deeply want to be, but you didn't realize that because everybody who knows you would not expect that of you. But it doesn't matter to yourself. It's just that the surroundings does influence us. So I think it's very good to sort of make a little physical and psychological distance. So with this in mind, I decided to do my master's degree abroad, and I also vaguely didn't know what exactly want to be. I knew I definitely wanted to do something that has to do with media. I found it so fascinating, the whole media world. And I signed up for a master's course that I thought was the most exciting at that point. And after finishing that, I was hoping, you know, I would learn more. But then I realized that even here in Germany, while I did learn some things that I didn't learn back in home, such as, for example, critical thinking, that I think should be maybe more pushed at our universities. I had here at the beginning like a little bit of a shock, because our professors at university, they sort of always wanted us to, you know, give our own opinion on things. And I think back at home, we had a lot of this sort of repetition system that you listen to the lecture and then you sort of say, you know, what was being said in the class, and then you get a good grade. Or you read a lot of books and then you get a good grade when you repeat what's in those books. And here it was like, I mean, of course you went to the lecture and of course you read all of these books, but I want to hear your interpretation of it. And to me, it was a little bit that somebody's asking me about my own opinion, and it just wasn't like a one-time thing. It was just constantly everybody was expecting to hear your opinion and your contribution on the topic, that I found that very challenging initially. And I thought, you know, let's make a deal. You give me double more books to read and I get a good grade, I will do it. Just don't ask me to, you know, dwell a lot on this topic. And then with time, as we people are generally very adaptable, I learned to build my own opinions on certain topic. And I think that nurturing critical thinking and nurturing that you think independently of what you're told in class is something that is also very, very relevant in general in like some sort of entrepreneurial career path. But on the other hand, the way that the job market is right now, I feel like in many jobs, you need to have this sort of businessman or businesswoman approach in order to move forward. And I learned this a little bit hard way, because I expected, as I had throughout my school, to get instructions and then I do things as I'm told and then I excel at it. But then when the school was over, I just found myself a little bit like, okay, now the real life starts and this is the real deal. And actually, I realized that it's only after I finished university that I needed to start studying. So the way I started studying was sort of an informal type of education. So I said to myself, I need to get myself out there. I need to try out different things because I don't know how I'm going to figure out what I want to do. So first thing I did was I worked for an NGO here in Berlin that did like cultural media management. And I really, really liked it because it was so dynamic and you had so many opportunities to sort of advance. So after some half a year, I got my own team, I got my own projects. So we were kind of coming up with ideas. We were organizing conferences, bringing people together to talk about issues that were pressing the world. Also part of it was, for example, nation branding in former Yugoslavian countries. So by building this dialogue, we wanted to make some change in the world and to bring people closer together and not to separate like the politics has done in the past. So after that, I had an opportunity to go to work for a governmental organization, which was an opportunity that was very well paid. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to leave my team of 10 people back in the day, and I'm going to do this. And there was also another little thing that other job was in Denmark, where my boyfriend lived back in the day. So I said, okay, two things in one. Worked in politics. And then I realized, these political organizations are so important. But to me, coming from this super dynamic startup sort of mentality, being in this institution where there have been processes for the past hundreds of years, that it was kind of getting a little bit too slow. So after I finished my scholarship program that I was granted, and I did a lot of research on the conferences that we were organizing in Belgrade and in Dubrovnik in Croatia, I realized, okay, maybe it's a time to try out something else. So at that point in time, I thought, I finished education, I managed to save some money. Maybe I should do something that was always so interesting to me as a child, and I think now is the last time I can try it, see how it works. And that was the career of working in fashion industry as a model. And then I ended up, being at 26, the total beginner in the fashion industry. But still, I found the agency that believed in me. So they pushed me, they helped me get some really, really amazing assignments, music videos, TV commercials, doing catwalks on Fashion Week. And after that, I also managed to travel a little bit due to this fashion job. And then after that, I figured out that I loved it. It was very exciting, but I didn't see myself long-term in the whole thing, and that it's time to try something else. And then I got a job in Berlin again, worked in B2B industry for organizing events that was sort of related to what I did in the past, but more focused on business to business. And after working there for more than a year, I figured that I don't like that my job is me just sitting behind the phone and doing cold calling. I had a lot of colleagues who loved it, and I respected that. But then I had to make the decision to move on. And after that, I got to work for the first time for a magazine here in Berlin. It was a startup that was that had some good ideas, but the execution wasn't very optimal. And at that time, I figured also here I learned something, but I feel like it's time to move on. And that's when I found out that there is Vice Media in Berlin. And when I used to work for the political organization in Copenhagen, I used to do a lot of research, and I watched some Vice documentaries by chance, and I was totally fascinated. Became a fan of the company. So when I figured that they're in Berlin, I was like, okay, I need to apply for this job, even though I didn't fit the qualifications at all, because it said senior and I didn't have the number of years of experience or all of the qualifications that they had, but I still decided to go for it. And then after some chasing of the HR department there, I got myself in the interview. And in the interview, even though we both realized that I don't have all of the qualifications, I did communicate well enough that I understand what the company is about, that I learn fast, and I'm going to do it. And I'm very, very grateful that I had that moment in time, and that those people recognized that commitment and enthusiasm and knowing about the topic are more than just like the formal requirements for a job. And that was like a little bit more than 6 years ago.
Bojana, let me just make a pause here, because you've been saying so many important things, and actually your path very much showcases the changing of the time, and the fact that the formal education doesn't go along with what the world, the new world needs. and actually you creating your own path, right? Um, and demonstrating how it's not only the the formal knowledge that you need, but a whole lot of newer skills that are so much more important nowadays. We've been knowing that for a while in the entrepreneurial world. We're still learning a whole lot of them every day. So um, obviously you've been attracted to the future all the time, right? And that's maybe also your love for digital media and so on and so forth um, that brought you where you're at now. What do you see in terms of really those core skills that you need to have to be able to be a professional in the making, of the new world, because it's evolving all the time, and before Corona is never going to be um, it's never going to be. We've lost that one, so we definitely need to transform into something else. What do you see as one of the most resilient skills that you have to develop for professionals, especially in digital media and in the technologies that are going to be here to stay?
That's a very good question. And I would say that one of the most important things is to have the modesty to admit to ourselves that even though we have a lot of acquired skills and that we have great knowledge on certain topics, that we still don't know so many things, and that we constantly educate ourselves further. And there are so many ways. I think knowledge hasn't been as accessible as it is today ever in the past. Thanks to the internet, we can, attend online courses at Harvard or Yale for free. There are so many amazing authors on YouTube or Substack. So in that sense, I think the most important thing is to get informed the whole time and know what's happening in the world, what are the trends, to compare them to your own interests and to see there where there are overlappings. This is the thing you should continue pursuing. This is the first thing. And the second thing is building your own network. This is so incredibly important. I remember, coming from our country, there are so many types of prejudice according to, that person got the job because they knew someone, and, this sort of nepotism thing. And well, I have to admit that it does exist, both in Serbia and in other countries. But then on the other hand, times have changed nowadays. And I think getting yourself in a position to have that connection who's going to recommend you somewhere is an achievement in itself. So building your social capital is incredibly important. Not being lazy, but, getting yourself out there, writing maybe on a certain topic to show what's your knowledge, attending events, attending online conferences, offline, hopefully soon again. And also, listening to different kinds of podcasts or different kinds of shows that will bring you further. And then once you see an exciting speaker or somebody that is inspiring you, getting in touch with this person, explaining to them what you're working on, and see if there is a way you can cooperate. So in general, these would be the two things, particularly also building this social capital, because I think that it used to have a little bit of negative connotations. He got the job because he knew someone, and now I think the game has changed, and it is, you have to, make it that this person in the room, when being asked, hey, do you know someone who can do this and that, the first person that they think of is you. Yeah. So that would be
right. Thank you for pointing that out. The relationship building is crucial for learning and for building trust in all occasions. So in the job market, it's it's a matter of trading trust. I trust that you are able to uh, perform, what we're going to hire you to perform. So definitely. And, it's hard though. It's really hard to build your network, as you say. You always have to be in some sort of way outside of your comfort zone, aware of, what you're looking for and focus, but on the other side, on the other hand, open enough to listen to the diversity, being aware of one's own prejudice, right? Why should I listen to you as opposed to someone else? And also, in these times, even though, obviously the democratization of the internet, brings news and everything, everywhere. But at the same time, the human touch is lost, right? Because we've been in isolation for quite some time. So that trust building is harder from that perspective. It's easier if you meet someone, casually for coffee or in a classroom or in a meeting, and then you continue that conversation online. That's easier. But how do you start that through, totally, an online environment? Do you have that experience?
Yes, I do, because as you said, in these circumstances in which we found ourselves unexpectedly, there are no more old ways of getting in touch. With the hope of, the vaccination process becoming faster and more efficient, and hopefully by the end of the summer, most of the people here in Germany or in Serbia or in other European or world countries will be vaccinated. So it will be possible to have these offline events again. But in the meantime, we just need to, sit at the laptop or on the mobile phone and just research on the topics that we're interested in. Me personally, I would personally recommend platforms such as LinkedIn for getting in touch with people, because it's I think they perfectionized a lot of features that they have, and it's more than easy. It's easier than ever to get in touch with other people, and then attend online events and listen to conversations on Clubhouse or anywhere else where you have the possibility to be live participant to it. Another thing that is very, very important is that before we attend this sort of online event, or before we approach a person on LinkedIn or other platform, to do a thorough research, because nobody likes some sort of random cold contacting. And at the end of the day, think about yourselves. You also don't want somebody to write you something that looks like a very random template. So being informed on what is the topic of the event where a participant that you find particularly relevant for your career field is taking part in. So you get informed on it, you ask some good questions afterwards, make sure you stay in the memory. Or if you're a little bit shy to ask questions, you make notes, what you liked out of the speech, and then you get in touch with the person by sending them an email or by writing them on some sort of social media and saying, hey, I attended this event. I thought it was really interesting what you said. And depending on what exactly it is that you want to achieve out of that conversation, you formulate your question in a clear and concise way. And for example, it could be, would you like to meet for an online coffee? Or how about we have a quick chat because I have this and this question and I think you could help me because of that and that. And ideally also what's in it for them. So I think research is a part of it, and then having the courage to contact the people. And I assure you, some people will ignore you and some people are going to answer to you. The most important thing is that you don't give up.
And I have to say, you're fantastic at this, because actually that's how we met, right? So you actually did write an email, and 5 minutes after I read that, I said, wow, this is amazing, we have to collaborate. So it works. Definitely. So what can you tell us a little bit more about your job, your experience, advice. We are super interested to find out some trends in digital media and what's happening in that world.
It's a super dynamic world, so every year feels like completely different from the year before. I just know that, at that time when I had the first interview and when I got the job, to me, I was so grateful that I had this opportunity. But when the whole thing started, I felt super overwhelmed by everything, because all of a sudden I was doing so many things at the same time that were new to me. But then what I thought was amazing is to get to find yourself a mentor within the company who is going to help you progress. And this is like a recommendation, not only for the media industry and for my current job, but in general, any type of work that you do, or if you are the person who is employing other people, then you should be that mentor, because people usually stick to their jobs because they feel welcome in that surroundings, and because they feel that their mentor or their boss or manager is on their side, and that person understands them and is going to help them progress in their career. So I had maybe the luck to meet some amazing people in my team. And I was so impressed that, some of them were so much younger than me, and they had all of this confidence that I absolutely didn't know where it came from. And I felt like in school, I learned, more about modesty, and, you do your thing and then it will be recognized and then you will get awarded. But that's not how real life works. You have to put yourself out there and to communicate clearly your efforts, and to communicate clearly also your vision and your ideas for the future. And this is something that will bring you forward, regardless whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an employee in the company. And I even think that in the future, the things such as intrapreneurship, like this mindset where you within your own company want to build your own unit and push things forward, is something that's going to become more and more important. So I had the chance within my own company to initiate some projects that we didn't do in the past, or didn't do in that form, such as start a podcast, for example, that was totally new to me and to my colleagues, but I just had a feeling the time is good, we should do this. Then due to some changes on the market, we had to adapt and to start using new platforms that I thought was so amazing, because I found myself all of a sudden downloading Snapchat and doing like all these filters because we were doing campaigns on Snapchat. So I needed to understand how it works. And then the year after that, there was like TikTok. So now I need to understand how that works, because our media company is present on all of these platforms. So what I love about digital industry is, on one hand, it's definitely not boring, and you're learning something the whole time, and you're doing something that is so omnipresent in our daily lives that it's even more fun, because the topics that are related to your work are also the topics that you talk about with your friends. Have you seen this Instagram post? Have you seen this TikTok or Instagram reel? And it has a little bit of downsides, in the sense that sometimes, because the digital media is so dynamic and fast-paced, you start learning things, you start working on them, and then they don't exist in a couple of months, and you're like, oh my god, 3 months of my life gone. But then on the other hand, I think this is also something that we need to learn: trial and error. The only way to progress is to sometimes test things that you didn't know about, and then you move on. And this is something that I feel like my current job has taught me a lot, because, some of the things and the products that we develop are not successful, but then we learn something out of it and make a better product for something else. So I'm hoping that the future is also going to stay like that, and that it's going to keep me alert and give me this feeling that I'm sort of progressing psychologically and in the terms of climbing career ladder. And for everyone who wants to do digital media industry, I suggest to have an open mind, and just to be very adaptable to change, and sort of, as you also mentioned, looking into the future and like, what's the next big thing? Because it just doesn't, it's not an industry that one thing is going to last for like hundreds of years, like in some other media types, but more like, okay, what's next, and how can I make the best out of it?
What are some small trends that you can share with us in terms of what kind of content do you see that is working the best? Some channels, you mentioned podcasting.
Yeah, it's interesting because some of the trends are totally contradictory to each other. So what we notice with our readers, especially on who are consuming our content on social media platform, is that due to the fact that there is just so much good content out there, the attention span tends to get a little bit lower. So the shorter the content, the better, which is sometimes it's a little bit sad, but sometimes it's actually good, because by making more shorter pieces of content, you can get more messages transferred. So what I find very fascinating in a way is that in this world of fast-paced media, scrolling, what's the new thing, you know, get me hit with the adrenaline shot because I discovered this, I discovered that, that all of a sudden there is this phenomenon such as podcast talks or live talks where people sometimes talk for like hours, and they still get all of this viewership or listeners who like listen to the whole thing. So I guess what matters is to recognize, based on a platform, what is the audience expecting of me here. You know, if you're going to be on social media channels such as TikTok or Instagram, it just has to be sort of attention grabbing, and the shorter the better. Whereas on some other platforms such as YouTube or partially Clubhouse or the podcasting platform from Spotify to Apple to SoundCloud, you have some sort of different type of audience that comes there for the conversation and is ready to invest a little bit more of their time. Particularly with the audio formats, it's very possible, because while people are listening to something, they can also like do sports or like cook and stuff. So the likelihood that your long content is going to be heard until the end is much higher than on the platforms that are occupying our like visual focus.
What do you personally use as platforms? What do you enjoy the most?
Oh my God, I use almost everything. I used to be like the last person in my friend circles who got the smartphone. And actually I just got it because I had to, because of work, because I knew my attention span is just like not very long. And if I had the access to social media all the time, that it would be a little bit of an issue. But I think I'm sort of managing it now. I do have a couple of platforms that I spend more time than on the others. And I think definitely I really, really like listening to podcasts. This is just something that goes with my nature, because also in person, I like to talk to people. I like to ask tricky questions. I'm a little bit more of deep talk fan than small talk fan. So I feel like podcasts are giving me that, and I listen to them on iTunes or on Spotify. And then I have to admit, I really like Instagram, because I'm totally impressed how many artists there are, and I have a certain type of content that I like, that some sort of collage visuals, and I follow so many of those accounts that sometimes my feed feels like some sort of an online exhibition. And I lately, since the beginning of year, I got into Clubhouse, which is like an audio platform for live talks. And in Germany, it had like this weekend being super crazy hyped. Everyone from digital marketing scene was there. And I just found it so funny how it just lasted for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so. So it kind of faded away by the end of February, but I'm still on the platform because I found some podcasters that I like that are giving live talks there, and it's like sort of keeping my attention. And I love that you can like choose by the topic that interests you. And the last platform, but not the least, is LinkedIn. I really, really love it. And I want also in the future to maybe make a better strategy of how I'm using this channel, because I think there is a lot of potential.
Thank you, Bojana. This is super interesting. Yeah, I just got into Clubhouse, and there's too many things going on there, and I get notifications all the time.
Yeah, they need to work on that feature. That's why people give up, because you just get overwhelmed and it's like, no.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm sure that
I'm with you.
it's going to get fixed at that level. But we have a couple of minutes left, and one thing I would really like to find out from you, what's your next step? Because definitely you are the kind of person that doesn't stop and is gonna go forward. And I love all of the attributes that you talked about, and your competitiveness and your grit and everything. So would love to know what's next for you. And the other thing, whatever your message is, for people from here, from Serbia, from the Balkans, and actually, how you want to be connected to where you come from.
So when it comes to the next step, I think what I realized about myself is that I really like this field of business development. So I'm sure I'm going to be doing it at least for a couple of more years. Maybe advice, maybe with some other company, but currently where I am, I feel still very, very motivated. So that's a good sign. But I also do realize that we as people tend to change. We change our interests. So I'm open to, what other things I'm going to get excited about in the future. But definitely business development is a thing for me. And then who knows, maybe one day I would like to have my own company. I have at this point just way too many ideas and it's very unclear what I'm doing. So it's now is definitely not the time for that. But I do believe that with experience, maybe something is going to come up, and with contact, with talking, by talking to people and with experience, maybe this is going to be something that I'm going to be doing in the future. But at the moment, I'm loving my sales director job advice. And when it comes to what I would recommend to people from Serbia, former Yugoslavia, or in general, to young people or people who are working on their career progress, is that it's so important to get informed and to be in the loop about what is happening in the world, and to not think so much about what you learned in school, and to think more about what you can learn on your own. Because at the end of the day, also what I realized through a lot of job interviews and talks that I had with other people, sometimes this formal degree that you have is less worth than your experience and people who so don't forget about this, and don't be like, wow, I finished now this degree, I'm so amazing, but more like modest and now I have to learn about how this is done or how that is done. And also especially for women, because I think this is something that is a little bit of an issue, not just in Serbia, but also here. Women are at average more quiet about their achievements than men are. And I think that we need to kind of not be shy to celebrate our success more loudly. And also, first of all, to admit to ourselves, to make a break and say, oh my God, I achieved this, and this, that's so amazing. And then when you become aware of it yourself, I feel like it's going to be easier to transfer this message to the others. What I also want to recommend is to be very careful about who are the people who you surround yourself with. You have to have the feeling that these are the people who inspire me, and these are the people who respect me. Because if you're in that type of surroundings, this is something that is going to help you flourish in the future. And if you feel like this is maybe not for me, I feel like what we learned in school, it's a little bit stigmatized when there is like a little failure, when you tried something and it didn't achieve. We need to get over it. That didn't work. Okay, next thing. That didn't work. Next thing. And then eventually there's going to be an amazing thing. And the thing is going to be amazing because you did all of these little failures in the past, but you learned from each of them. And now you're doing something that makes you feel complete. So maybe not just being like, everything has to be perfect always. And if you fail at something, it's the end of the world. No, it's a learning, more see it like that, like an opportunity to learn. even though it sounds a little bit maybe cheesy, maybe it's used too much, but I think it's never, we cannot be enough reminded of the fact that, you know, when one window closes, another window opens, and the most important thing is not to give up, to be curious, to get yourself educated, and to, you know, work on your network of people who you surround yourself with. And I think that's the best formula for success in career, and at the end of the day also for success in life in general.
Amen. You said it all. Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. This is something that happens primarily with us women. You know, we think we only have one shot at things, and if we don't do it right the first time, then, you know, we can go home. But no, you know, we can listen to ourselves and be so much more persistent. So thank you for demonstrating that, not only talking about it. You know, you're really a model in that perspective, and we need you, and we need a lot more Bojanas in the community to make that change. So thank you so much. You know, we'll see you very soon. And yes.
Thank you for giving me the platform to share some of my experience, and for all the listeners who may have some additional questions, please feel free to get in touch via any social media, Instagram, LinkedIn. I love talking to people, and I'm also open to mentorship, and would be more than happy to share my further knowledge to help you, to make you feel empowered and successful in your careers.
That's fantastic. I already see some volunteers for mentorship. So the sign-up list is on. Thank you again, Bojana. Have a great day, and talk to you very soon. Thank you for following our We Founders podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, listen to our episodes on Podcast.rs and Sounder, and check our websites for updates on wefounders.net.